One, oh wow, listen to that. We shall try this again. Since I don't edit, you didn't know that, did you? Oh, good evening, everyone. I've just had my voice quiet for a little while. Surprise, surprise. But I was thinking about how we make a life, or how do we make a living? Those are two very different things. Very different things. Yes, if we're going to have a paycheck and we're going to have some money or we're going to create an income, we're going to have to make a living because we need the roof over our head, the food in our bellies, the clothes on our back. We need all of that. And that's why we go out in whatever we're doing to make a living. But is making a living also a happiness and a joy? Huh, that makes me think of a young man who says, "Oh, no, I have to leave right away." We were having a coffee. He says, "I have to leave. I have to get to work." Well, he's just going to work here in town. And I'm thinking, that's early. You go to work early all the time. No, he says, "I have to drive around the work block 3 times before I drive in because I just don't want to go in." I'm thinking, what a way to live. What a way to live. Now that's making a living. I'm going to work and doing what I have to do so I can get my paycheck. That's it. How sad. Why not do what you love? Well, you might say, Sandra, get out of the clouds. We don't all get to do what we love. You might be doing what you love. Well, am I? We'll talk about that. But how about loving what you're doing until you're able to do also what you love? Or maybe the two will come together. Let me ask you one more time. Have you chosen to settle just how you're going to make a living? I would not want to be that young man circling the place 3 times before I have to go in. And can you imagine putting in, I forget whether he does an 8-hour shift or 12-hour shift, continental, so it might be 12 hours. Could you imagine going in where you don't want to go for half of your day, 12 hours? I can't believe it. And I'm thinking, even when I wasn't doing any fancy work, I went in and thought, here's where I am, smiled at the people, did my job, had my coffee break. It didn't matter. I remember my dad saying, we worked at Stokely's. He worked there, and we kids, my sister and I worked there on the summer jobs, Stokely Van Camp at the canning factory. And Dad would say, some of those guys, they get so upset because we just get the truck loaded with all the cases of canned goods to go out, and somebody comes out and says, "Oh, wrong load, take all that stuff off, put this stuff on." If it wasn't peas, it was supposed to be corn. If it wasn't corn, it was supposed to be carrots. And he said, those men, some of them are just cursing and banging and it's so mad. And he says, well, you know what, kids, I get paid whether I'm carrying the cans on or carrying them off. Like, who cares? So he goes on. That was my dad. He didn't have to love that he was carrying cases of canned goods and putting them in the truck, because there was always a reason for putting canned goods on a truck. The food was going to go out and feed somebody. And because he was doing what was needed, he was getting a paycheck. When he was getting a paycheck, he was looking after the family. And in between, he was working with a bunch of guys and they would talk shop or talk nonsense or joke around with each other. So I learned from my dad very early on, you just do what's in front of you. So think about it. Are you choosing to settle for making a living? Or have you considered how to make a life? That's 2 different things. Now, if you're fortunate and you know what you love to do and you're able to create that into a business and make your living doing that, doing what you love, great. If that's not quite there for you at the moment, as you progress and find that space, Because if you want to live, you want to keep progressing until you find that space. But until you do, why not love what you're doing? When I was growing up, I was such a lovely curious little girl. I always had these dimples. I was always being, oh, look at you've got such beautiful dimples, and you have a smile on your face. And even though I swallowed my voice, that's a story for another day. I still always had a smile on my face. Sometimes it was a mask, and other times it was because I was singing or I was imagining teaching. I lived in an imaginary world so much of the time. And as children, that's our gift. And as adults, if we're smart, we'll not forget that gift. There's no reason for us as adults to not be in our imagination and see ourselves doing what it is we love to do, just being that person. And that's where we start to make the change. As a little girl, I always loved school. And I always played at being a teacher. We played school. Either I had to do the work, I was the student, or a lot of times I was the teacher. And I filled my heart up with that teaching. And everywhere I went, I also wanted to sing. So I would sing and do the star on that big rock at my aunt and uncle, and the cars would toot and the cheers would go up. Now, life got in the way. Yes, life did get in the way. I was a school teacher and went to Germany for 3.5 years with the military as a wife and brought my babies home, and there were no teaching jobs. I ended up waitressing for 6 years. Now, I could go into that waitressing saying, I'm a school teacher and I'm not supposed to be here waiting on tables and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I could, but I didn't. When I was waiting on tables, people that knew I was a school teacher would say, Sandra, why are you here? What are you doing? And I said, you see the door over there? When people come in, if they're happy, I keep them happy. And if they're not happy, I get them happy. People are coming to have a meal served to them and to enjoy and have a break from their day. That's my job. And I'm going to have fun while I'm here. I'm not going to be a waitress forever. I'll be back teaching one day. Well, the teaching didn't happen, but the one day did come along when I had the children. They were old enough that I could look a little further now. And I went back to school for a year as an adult. And while I was there, I went to a seminar about selling life insurance, and I ended up going into selling life insurance. Now, not very many people make it. Everybody seems to go in and sell life insurance for a little while. And they sometimes last for 6 months, maybe not. 40 years later, here I am still. And was it the natural, joyful work for me? No. I had to call people and ask them to buy. Was that my normal loving state? No. That was making a living. However, once I was with the people, what did I do? I went back into my teaching. I could teach them about financial planning. I could teach them about life insurance. I could teach. And that's what I did. So here I am for 40 years in the financial world, not only making a living, but having made a life out of getting to love what I was doing, at least those aspects where I got to be doing teaching. And for my quiet time, my own time, I was singing. I'm still singing. I figure I've made myself quite a life. And I want to invite you to think about, what have you done with your life so far? And what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Are you going to settle and be grumbling like the young man that goes around the factory 3 times before you can ever drive the car in there and curses going in for 12 hours? Whew, not me. And I hope not you. Choose today to not settle. Don't settle just to make a living. Yes, make the living, but find the parts that you love and work towards being that person that you want to be, doing what you do love. It's not instant. I didn't get it instant. Nobody gets it instant. But it's okay. You can do it. Communication, again, has been my saving grace. Learning how to talk to yourself, talk with others, work with circumstances, it's all power. So please consider what it is that you want to do for making a life. Don't settle. You can do it. Coach Sandra, Compassionate Queen of Straight Talk, you can do it, and I can help. Have a great evening.